Hey guys, welcome to another episode of the D's Queen podcast. I'm pretty sure this is going to be episode 10. Today I have Cummins Cowgirl, which her real name is Chloe, on here. And I've had her on a podcast episode before for Diesel Laptops, but I wanted to ask her on here again. She's a very big creator. She started off in the heavy duty side as a mechanic and then has just flourished into having her own shop and building all these really cool fucking trucks. So we're going to dive into that. And yeah, it's good, I guess. Do you want to do your own introduction?
What's up, guys? I'm Chloe, as Melissa had said. Basically, I started in the industry as a semi mechanic. So I was working at a Peterbilt dealership and gradually worked my way into having my own shop, and which now we build for like SEMA and international shows such as that. So yeah, that's pretty much the general gist of what I do now.
So I would love for you to go over a little bit your diesel, your origin story a little
Okay.
bit on how you got into it, because I think a lot of people, there's most of the women that I've talked to are like, oh well, my dad was a mechanic, or like whatever,
Yeah.
or my grandma was a mechanic. I've had that before. So it's like you didn't really have that. You were actually an office girl before
Yeah.
you moved into it. So I would love to kind of touch base on your little origin story
Yeah.
there.
So I mean, I wish I had someone like that, like a mentor, I guess, to learn from at a young age, but I didn't have that. And I had thought of doing like the career center at high school and doing welding or something, like some sort of trade, but my parents kind of were like having me do dual enrollment instead to start getting college credits in high school, so I never did go that route. And so then I was originally in Michigan, went to college in Texas in Amarillo, and had a bachelor's degree in like agricultural business. Because at that time, I didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just wanted to leave Michigan and head south, so I did. And it wasn't until I got down to Texas where I had a piece of crap second gen that I had to work on to be able to have a vehicle to get around. So that was kind of where I started tinkering, if you will, on my own vehicle. So I did like oil changes, and then I was like, okay, this is cool. I can do this on myself. And then my alternator went out, and I had it towed to a shop there. And he quoted me like $400 to change an alternator and do an oil change. So I was like, I'll figure it out myself. So I changed my own alternator, and in the process, shocked the ever living crap out of myself because I did not know that you had to disconnect the negative battery terminal. So yeah, that was fun. But within the whole experience, I found that I had a love for fixing and doing things myself because it was very like empowering in a way. So that was what kind of kickstarted the whole working on stuff. Mind you, I'm probably like 18, 19 at this time. So, I mean, young adult, but no, by no means like growing up with it at home. So then I was like 2 years into my 4 year degree, and I went to my college advisor and I was like, hey, I think I want to basically drop out from here and go to like UTI or the diesel mechanic school they had there in Amarillo. And he basically was like, you know what, you're already halfway through, just finish your 4 year degree. So, and that was essentially what my parents had said too. Like, you're already halfway through, you might as well finish. So I'm like, okay, I guess I'll finish. So then I go to a career fair that we have at the school, and Rush Truck Centers was there. And that was how I kind of was introduced to them because I saw a semi on their banner, had no idea who they were, what they did. And I was called down for an interview. So I went into Rush to have an interview. And then they had me interview at headquarters, and so then I went to headquarters to basically be interviewed for their management intern program. And so I was like, okay, I don't know what all this is about, but let's try it out. So basically, what that program is you have 6 months of training, And within that, you have the service part, the parts part, and then the sales part. And I started in sales, and I hated my life. I could not stand being stuck in an office behind a computer. I couldn't stand it. There was like no human contact. I did not like it at all. And so I asked the service advisor if I could just skip that kind of part and fast pace it to the service side. And they're like, yeah, let's get you in here as an advisor, intern, trainee. I switched to the service side, much more fast paced. I love that a lot more. There's a lot more going on in the service side of it. So I was a lot happier there. But every time I go into the shop to get check ins from the techs, I just sit there and watch them and talk to them and just BS with them to the point where the guys in the office are like, okay, come on, you need to like get out of the shop. And so it took us a while to be able to convince my service advisor to let me have like a 2-week kind of tryout in the shop. And that was a lot of coaxing and please and please and please, just give me a shot. I want to be out there. And a lot of no, you don't. Why would you want to go from white collar to blue collar? Like, you're going to end up taking a pay cut. Like, this is like, don't do this. And so it took a lot of time for them to finally be like, okay, just to get you to shut up, let's try you on a trial basis and see how it goes. So I started in the shop. I was in there for 2 weeks, and then 3.5 years later, I was a level 2 tech when I had left. And then I had my own shop started, CC Customs, and I still go back there every now and then just to say hi to the guys and just to BS in the office with them. But they've always, every time I go back, they're like, hey, if you ever want to bring your toolbox back, we've got a bay for you. Like, I'll keep that in mind, but thanks anyway. But
Right.
no, I absolutely loved working for them. They were a great environment for me to learn at. Lots of very knowledgeable techs there and good mentors. And I was grateful and thankful and blessed enough to not have any kind of weird vibe with anybody or drama. A lot of them just treated me like they were my brothers. And so lots of good safety from the advisors as well. Like, they'd walk me to my car since I worked the night shift. So a lot of that was, I was very blessed with the dealership that I was at. So I always loved working there, but I wanted to do my own thing and be my own boss. So that's where we are today.
So I have a question, because like this has been on my brain quite a bit too, because I myself also left the I don't know what you would call it, that side of the industry where you work under someone else. And I too left that. And I mean, my personal shop and my success with my personal shop is nowhere near yours, just because I keep having fucking setbacks and it's ridiculous. But like I've been like pondering this for like the last year, solid year. So I have a question that I want you to answer. In all honesty, what is more fulfilling to you? Was it more fulfilling to you to work every day, even though you were working under somebody else, but working on semis and doing that every day? Or is it more fulfilling for you what you're doing now?
I go back and forth. So
Same.
the thing that I loved about the dealership was that it was in a way a stability kind of thing where you have a certain set time, you have a routine that you have to create and you stick with. And I knew what I was doing pretty much every day at a certain time. Now, there's restrictions with that though too. So it's like, if you have setbacks, that falls on the shop, not necessarily you as the shop owner now. So that's a big plus, working as just a tech instead of like a shop owner. But it just depends, because there was a lot of times where I really loved working at the dealership based on the jobs that I had. Like, obviously,
Yeah.
you're at the mercy of whatever they give you. And so some really suck, and some are like, damn, I did that thing by myself. That was nice, you know? Or you just get lube tech crap. So it just depends on what it is. And every day it changes for the most part, especially for like 1-2 level techs. You're kind of limited with what you can do. But what I loved about the dealership was that certain advisors had a little bit more faith in me than others. And I caught on to that really early on. So I'd always go to them for challenges because I knew that they would give me challenges, whereas the other ones wouldn't. And so that was one thing. And then when that advisor left, it was kind of like, okay, I know I'm not going to have anything challenging now because that one that had the faith in me is no longer here. So that was kind of where my heart was kind of pulling me away because I was already part-time at that point. And when I tell you, when you're working on stuff at home and all of your tools that you need are at the shop and not at home, and you're just like, this sucks. So that was one of the big ones too, where I was like, I need to have my tools full time at my house. Like, I can't keep doing this whole back and forth backpack thing. It's not working. So I was slowly progressing, bringing a toolbox home at a time kind of a thing. So it wasn't just like, I quit, I'm out. So I think they kind of saw it coming because like I said, I was full time and I was actually going to quit cold turkey, put my 2 weeks into the whole shebang. And they had actually gave me a position as a part-time that wasn't really kind of a thing at that time in terms of what they were needing for techs. So they actually kind of made my own position so I could stay on. But because of that being part-time, they wouldn't give me big projects knowing that I wouldn't be there full-time. So that was where it was kind of really hard because then I wasn't giving challenges anymore, and I didn't have a way to like further my certifications or education like with Cummins training or anything like that, because obviously that's going to go to like a full-time tech priority over me. So that kind of thing.
He's dragging my mirror across the shop. Sorry, I couldn't hear you because he was dragging one of my old mirrors across the shop. But yeah, that was just one of my questions because I've been struggling with that as well because my like heavy equipment is just my bread and butter, specifically John Deere, and I miss the challenges and the different machinery and the level of
software.
Yeah.
The available software. Oh, I miss that so much.
Yep.
That's the number one. Your resources.
Yep.
When you leave the dealership, it's cut out from your worth of subscriptions and software and programs just to even do what you had like hated the most. Like crap, trying to find anything online is ridiculous anymore.
Yeah, I agree.
Of resources, any sort of anything like diagrams, schematics, and I'm sure it's even worse with heavy equipment. I'm sure it's even more limited.
Yeah. Well, and that's like, what my boyfriend and I were talking about quite frequently. And he's like, well, why don't you start, if your ultimate dream, if you could have anything in the world was owning a John Deere dealership, why don't you just do that? And I'm like, do you have any idea how fucking like, not that I would back down for a challenge, but like, do you have any idea how much money it takes? Yeah. Like, I'm not going to be able to you can't just open a John Deere shop. You have to be approved through Deere. It has to be a very specific shop. And you either have to buy out another dealership in the area, specifically if you want to do construction, or you basically have to buy that construction dealership. And I don't have millions of dollars to try to do that. And like that's just something that like I've been like going through withdrawals really hard because I like building trucks and stuff like that, but it's just not the same as the everyday grind and the learning opportunities. And I just felt so much more like challenged and useful, I guess. Yeah. And so that's been like, I was curious how, cause you stay more busy than I do with your personal shop because you've got, I mean, like 400 goddamn trucks, like with everybody else's shit too. You build everybody else's stuff too. So Like all I have is my hunk of shits. So it's just been super slow. And I've thought about starting my own engine shop and building engines, but like engines are fun and I love doing rebuilds. But at what point is that also going to become redundant for me
Yeah. Yeah.
and not challenging anymore? And that's what I'm worried about. But I don't think starting a heavy equipment, like I'm terrified of trying to do like even like a non-dealership John Deere shop because again, like you said, the resources
Yeah.
with that and not even just the manuals, like diesel laptops could give me the manuals. It's the specialty parts and the specialty tools and like these trucks you can pretty much jerry rig any tool for what you need to do. But when it's a freaking $500,000 John Deere piece of equipment and you're trying to pull finals off or something like that, or you're trying to do, I mean, there's so many specialty tools for everything. Just the little shits, like the seal installers and all these other little things that you don't think about when you're working there because you just go into the parts room or the tool room and you grab it out of the thing. But if you're starting your own dealership, it's like, or your own shop, it's like, okay, even if you're not a certified dealership, you still need to have like some of those tools you could probably weld up yourself, right? But there's some of those tools that you're not going to be able to do it. And good luck convincing a local dealership to sell them to you.
Yeah.
So it's super restricting, but I was just curious on that because like I know like the semi world is kind of similar where I mean all the trucks have there's a bunch of different engines in those trucks. Granted, you worked at a Peterbilt, but so they're all basically Peterbilts, but you still got like they still run a bunch of different engines in there too.
Yeah.
So
Pat Cummins, Detroit, PACCAR, freaking PACCAR, bro. There's a lot of different things.
Good things about PACCAR.
No. But for me now, it's like I do a lot of electrical, and so and everything is that we do is mostly primarily Mopar, and Stellantis doesn't give you squat. You can't find terminals, you can't find anything for wiring, connectors, like anything like that. And when you can find them, they want an arm and a leg for them. But like just like a terminal kit that where I used to walk at my little happy ass in the freaking part room, get whatever I needed, come back out. Now, not anymore. And if you are lucky enough to find it, it's at least 10 days to get it shipped. So it's, that's what I miss. The resources. It's hard. It sucks.
Well, people don't think about like those just the little stupid things like pin out test pitch, right? Like, I mean, the John Deere kits are massive. They're like this big, right? Full of like little pin out shits and back probings and like every single thing you can use to test every single fucking pin for everything. And then the whole boxes of the bulk electrical connectors and all this crap. And it's like, dude, that John Deere kit is like a $500 goddamn pin out kit. And it's like ridiculous. But the wiring shit I struggle with too because I'm used to having the manuals, like the full blown, like I can sit there and trace everything out and I know where all the pin locations are, like you said. Like how the fuck it's literally not really that like possible to properly diagnose an electrical issue if you if you don't know which pins are in which connectors because the wire colors can change, they're not always the same. Like it's really hard. I've been struggling with my third gen with that with its P0299 code, which is a low boost code. Does it have low boost? No, it does not create low boost, but it thinks it creates low boost. So then the fucking computer's like, oh, I think we're having a low boost condition. So I'm going to defuel your engine. Yeah. Which then creates an actual low boost problem. And it's but then you start getting into the aftermarket shit where I have an edge tuner and I have an aftermarket turbo. And obviously the turbo is not the problem, but like I had to put a fooler for that turbo solenoid that's no longer there. And like all these variables. So not only do I not have the proper support for the electrical manuals for the stock system, but then also trying to like every single time I go to try and diagnose something on that truck, the very first thing I do is like completely unplug my tuner and start from there because it's Yeah, it's challenging. The resources, and that's where, like, I'll be flat honest, I guess, with you and my audience, is like that's kind of where I have a little bit of a self-confidence issue there
Yeah.
with trying
Dude,
to
I
run my
felt that.
own business or try to run my own service truck. It's like I
Yeah.
have the knowledge. I can ohm test shit, I can load test wires, I can do all of that, and I got it. But what the fuck do I do when I don't have the manuals to support that?
Yeah.
Like what do I do? And I've, like, especially with new issues with John Deere, I leaned really heavily on the the diagnostic procedures for stuff. And even as I got better in the industry, I'd started learning, like, okay, I can, like, I know for a fact it's not this based on these things. I can skip this, or maybe like I'm just gonna go and do the easy shit in this and I could make sense of it. But what am I going to do with new issues when I don't have those steps and have
Yeah.
those? And I'll flat admit that I don't have, like, that's kind of, I think a lot of new mechanics, I don't think that's just like us per se. That's all the new mechanics that have become reliant on that, because every single
Yes.
mechanic that has ever worked at a dealership is reliant on that. And
Yeah.
everything is electronic. Like, all the old school way of just doing the tests with no manuals is pretty much obsolete. And the
Yeah.
machines are so electronically complex, you really can't do it without a proper, at least a schematic.
Yeah. Right.
And I'm sure you've ran into this with your motherfucking Dodges, is you try to go and Google a
Oh
fucking
yeah.
schematic for something,
Yeah.
and good
Forget about it.
luck. And the
Yeah.
ones you
Forget
do
about
find, you're looking at and you're like, okay, okay. And then you're like, wait, this isn't even the right truck.
it.
This
Yeah.
isn't even the right fucking shit. And I'm
Yep.
like, it's so annoying. It's like impossible to fucking find the support system for that.
I felt that
So
in myself.
what I've started to do is I have befriended the Dodge dealership here in town. And, like, they are awesome. They are always awesome. They work on my truck. The only thing they've ever asked me to do is the one time they were working on the engine for something. Like, I didn't want them to fix anything. I just wanted them to plug their program in and do a cutout test. That's all I wanted them to do, because I can't do that. And they're like, oh yeah, it's fine. Just unplug your tuner. And I'm like, really? You're actually just going to run this test for me? But okay. Yeah, I'll unplug my tuner for you to run a cutout test. But they've adjusted my suspension and shit like that for, like, my steering stuff, even though it's all
Oh,
aftermarket.
nice.
They're awesome. And I feel like if I went to them and asked for a wiring schematic, they might do it. But,
Mhm.
like, it's taken 3 years to build a relationship with that dealership
Yeah.
to get to
And
that
you
point.
don't
So
want to
what the fuck
sever that
do
by
you
over
do?
asking. Yeah.
Yeah. And then, like, if they say no, I'm fucked.
Yeah.
So
I feel I'm very blessed because I kind of have that same thing going on with Skog and Dickey Parts Center because they're here local with me in Lubbock, Texas. So that has been a huge blessing to have them as a main resource, specifically because they have the race shop side, so they understand the aftermarket side of things. So that has been a huge help for me anyways, just because they're right here, basically in my backyard. So that's been a lot of help. Yeah, they're more on the Chevy side, but their sister store out of Leveland, which is like 45 minutes, is Dodge. So that way I can have at least some kind of in with that side. But it helps for certain things, but not I haven't asked for like service stuff necessarily. Because again, it's like I don't want to over ask, you know? So
yeah.
I feel that.
Well,
I
that's
definitely
like
feel that.
when I tell my Dodge dealership, like, dude, I bought, they quoted me ball joints for my green and black third gen. And they're like, honestly, we have to buy these through Moog anyways. We
Oh,
can't even get them through Dodge. And I'm
yeah.
like, so are you telling me if I buy my own, you'll put them in? Because I don't have a fucking ball joint press. That's another thing. I worked on heavy equipment. I don't have a motherfucking
Yeah.
ball joint press. And that's $500 alone to get the one that's big enough for the axles. And they're like, oh, yeah, it's fine. I'm like, seriously? Really? You're going to let me bring parts in that I didn't buy from you and you're going to put them on for me? And they're like, oh, yeah,
That
as
is
long
a
as you
good
pay us for the
relationship.
labor. I'm like, fucking sold, dude. I will pay you
Yeah.
for the fucking labor. Sold. Like, so
Oh yeah.
but it is like, I'm scared to go in there and ask for, like, wiring schematics and stuff like that, because I'm scared that, like, am I abusing this relationship a little bit? by asking for this stuff, because that is technically taking money away from them. But I think they might understand that, like, if they don't give it to me, I'm not paying them to do this anyways, but I still don't want to abuse that relationship with them. They give me a deal on parts. They give me, they help me out with the service stuff, even when I got a bunch of fucking aftermarket shit going on. So
I felt that because we had a AC line that was leaking on the 2024 GMC that I built for SEMA, that pink camo one, the McNasty truck.
yeah.
And I was scared because I was like, crap, how are you gonna get this thing somewhere to get AC put in it? And because I switched out the line, but I was worried because I'm like, I don't even know if this would be covered under warranty. They're gonna take one look at this vehicle and be like, you're funny.
Right.
There ain't nothing on this thing that's warrantable anymore. So because of that, I was scared to take it anywhere. So I just replaced the line, and luckily it only took 134A, so I was able to charge it myself. But it's stuff like that where it's like, bro, it's scary that I don't want to like over ask or whatever. But another vehicle I had just had in the shop was another 2024 GMC. This one was a 1500. AC compressor went out on it. And the dealership that he had it taken to over in New Mexico was saying that because it was past 700 miles, his warranty expired. So they wouldn't cover it. So I replaced the compressor for him, and I took it into Dickey because I didn't have a machine for the new refrigerant they have, which is like,
There's another refrigerant besides R134A.
yes, it's the new
What
one.
the fuck? I am so
Yes.
far behind.
Yes, my Challenger is on that one too. And I can't remember off the top of my head. It'll come to me. But my lines didn't fit, like my gauges, and I was like, what in the hell? Why are they not fitting? And then sure enough, I looked at the refrigerant and it's a whole different type. And I was like, son of a gun. So now I'm like, okay, now I have to take it in to have it recovered so that I can do the repair, take it back, have them do a leak test on it, and then recharge it because I don't have gauges. I don't have a machine to put it, like, to evacuate and reset, leak test, none of that. So I'm like, freaking, but they were nice enough to let me do that. And I took it in there, and the tech that was working on it, Warren, one of my contacts over there, he's like, hey, come to the shop and talk to the tech and stuff. And I was like, okay. And you could tell that the tech was like, you're doing this repair? And I'm like, yes. He's like, have you ever done one before? And I was like, no. And you could see his face was just like, yeah, okay, we'll see how this goes, kind of thing. And so
Yeah.
I was like, I know, oh ye of little faith. So he's like, well, let me show you the procedure. So I'm like, okay, yeah, sure, I'll take a look at the procedure. And I looked at it and I was like, okay, yeah, I already have that same exact procedure at home. But it gave me the confidence knowing that the procedure that he had at the dealership was the same exact one I had at home on my laptop, which I would be doing the same exact steps, same whole shebang. So I'm like, oh yeah, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. But it was just that little bit that helped my confidence boost after he was like, oh ye of little faith kind of face at me. So then that instantly ignited everything I had in my body of,
Yeah.
I want to prove you wrong. And then the fact that he had the whole procedure, the same one I had, I was like, okay, hallelujah. That makes me feel a lot better. And then I brought it the next day, had it charged, passed leak test, and it was great. And the customer was super happy because no other dealership could get him in like 2+ weeks. And you don't want to know what the parts markup was. It was absolutely insane. So he was very happy. And usually I don't do like repair work like that, actually, just because it's a different kind of
refrigerant, you don't really have a choice either with I'm not going to implement myself in crime fucking shit right now, but
not the
the
EPA.
only other option you have is to crack a line and run.
Yeah.
And then get one of those stupid little motherfucking pumps from goddamn Harbor Freight that sucks ass, not speaking from experience, sucks ass, and then hope it, like, there's no vacuuming. It's a vacuum, but it sucks. There's no leak testing. There's no adding the dye. There's no adding the oil to the system. It's just like, so I actually did the same thing with my green and black truck recently, because that truck had been apart for like 6 years because my dad started the teardown of the engine because he's the one who blew it up. And it sat with the head off for like 3 years before he gave it to me. Hence why I just got a whole new engine for it. But he was smart enough to do the mechanic thing when you take an engine out and leave the entire AC system hooked up and just move it to the side. Which, like, and so when I finally got it all back together, I'm like, there's no way there's still refrigerant in this. There's no fucking way. But I started it up and there is. And I'm like, this is fucking amazing. But I tried to charge it. And as you probably know with refrigerant systems, if there's not enough refrigerant in there to keep the pump on, it's not going to be able to suck the refrigerant out of those stupid little like O'Reilly's jugs. It won't work very well because the pump's not staying on enough to draw a vacuum on the low side.
Right.
So I finally took it into the dealership after I'd had enough of it. And I'm like, I can't do this because I don't have an AC machine at all. Like, I don't have anything to be able to do this.
$5,000 AC machine, bro. Yeah.
Dude, I've been this motherfucking close to dropping the money on an AC machine. Because I have the certifications to buy the cans of fucking refrigerant. Right. I have all the certifications, not the new fucking refrigerant. I didn't even know that was a thing. But I was like, I've been so tempted to do that. But I'm like, hey, like, can you just do this? And they call me and they're like, so question, so we got this all fixed and shit. And like, you were like really low, but we have a fucking concern. And I'm like, oh no. Because I'm like thinking like probably the receiver dryer, right? Because it's been
a while.
Possibly the receiver dryer, like whatever. And they're like, well, your condenser looks like it went through World War III. And I'm like, I know, I'm aware. And they're like, well, you're not getting very good airflow through your condenser. Not only that, but your fan clutch isn't functioning properly. And they're like, what all do you want us to do? And I'm like, well, definitely not the fan clutch, because I actually have another one here that I could probably put on, or I'll find some aftermarket thing. But what about the condenser? I'm like, I don't even know if I want to know how much a fucking condenser is from you guys. And they're like, oh, actually, there's an aftermarket shop here in town that we use, and we can get you a condenser for like $100. And I'm like, dude, fucking so like, so that's what they did, is they replaced my condenser and then they refilled my AC for me and everything. But they're so nice because they don't care what I approve and what I don't approve, which is super nice.
Like, they're not pushy. And that's hard to find, especially with a dealer.
Yep. They don't care. If they'll just like, oh yeah, this is what it is. What do you want us to do and what do you not want us to do? And I'm like, well, thank you. The Dodge dealership, like up north, I took my boyfriend's car there one time because I did the rear suspension, or the front and rear suspension. Like he wanted new coils in it, which not that hard. It was his 2015 Challenger.
Okay, yeah.
And they're launch springs, so they're technically a little bit taller than the stock ones because they're stiffer and they're slightly taller.
They're stiffer,
yeah. And I don't exactly know what's going on with them. You got a Challenger, I'm sure you know more. But what I do know is like their shit specifically said, and I'm sure it's because they're stiffer, specifically said the ride height would be slightly higher than stock, which is whatever, we didn't care. So I slapped these springs in. I tell you what, the back springs were a freaking cunt and a half. I hated that. I struggled with that hard, but I got it. I bought like a spring compressor and everything, so I could just take them all out and shit. But I had to do some zip tie shit. That was sketchy. But we go to take it to the Dodge dealership because I told him, I'm like, you need to get this aligned. Like there's new suspension shit, just get it aligned. We go to take it to the Dodge dealership up north where he lives, and I make the mistake of telling the guy, because I'm so used to the dealership down here, that, we put launch springs in it, and I would like you to align it. Yeah. Well, we leave, and no more than 5 minutes after we leave, he's like, we can't fit it on the alignment rack. It's too short. And I'm like, you didn't even fucking try. There's no way you even tried. I guarantee you heard launch spring and didn't even try.
Yeah.
So sure, shit, we take it down and I tell them, like, we put launch springs in it. Can you put it on the alignment rack? Oh yeah. And they fucking aligned it and everything. And it was great. And I'm like, so like half these shops, you hear anything aftermarket and they're like, we're not touching that with a 10-foot pole.
Yeah.
And then you get shops like mine where they're like, oh yeah, as long like we can do anything. The only thing they can't do is electronic diagnosis with a tuner installed. But I totally get that.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
totally understand that. But yeah,
I feel
it's
that.
challenging. So let's dive into a little bit some of your truck builds. So your first one was your second gen was called CC, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that truck. I really love that truck. But you just got rid of a few, like one or two of your current builds, didn't you?
So I still have my 4th gen. I had posted it that I sold it, but that was on the April 1st. So I feel like a lot of people are like
Oh,
confused about that.
I'm like, damn, she sold that? Like,
Yeah,
why didn't you fucking call me? I would have bought that thing.
no.
But so I want to kind of dive into like what exactly you've done to these trucks, and kind of what we talked about before we started into this is I've been asked by another podcaster, is it actually attainable to for the normal diesel enthusiast, is it actually attainable to be able to build show quality trucks and or even if you dive into the performance side of it, like the dyno shit, the drag racing, the burnout pits, stuff like that, like
Yeah.
is there something that, like, do you actually think that's achievable for the average person? And how do you achieve it with, I know that you have sponsors.
Mm-hmm.
So what portion, if you were going to start and build a truck from scratch, what percentage would you need to have for sponsors versus just being able to afford the rest, like what you can do yourself, I guess?
So there's a couple different it depends on, there's a lot of different factors. So that's the first way of putting it. I'll get to like what I do here in a second, but essentially if you're gonna build a truck, anybody on this is an average person. An average person that wants to build a truck and just wants to have it to just have a cool truck, that's a whole different ball game than say someone who wants to have a show build that goes to SEMA and has a bunch of sponsors and all of these other things. So like those are two very different things. So if you're wanting to just have like a cool weekend build where you don't have any kind of commitments or anything like that, no sponsorships, and or maybe you find a couple people that you want to work with kind of thing with just social media posts and stuff, that's a whole other ball game than like the whole show season circuit SEMA ball game. Attainability wise, if you got some deep pockets, you can do either one with no sponsors, but you got to have
Yeah.
some pretty freaking deep pockets to do that,
Yeah.
because when parts is one thing, labor is the whole other animal. The more
Yep.
customized you get, you can just double, if not triple, labor bills over that, like just like that. It's insane how fast labor will eat away whatever it is that you want to do. So typically what I would do with any of my clients or whatever, they approach me, they want to, hey, I want to build a truck. Great. This is like the whole shebang that I'm going to lay it on the table. What do you want to achieve? Like, what are you wanting to build? What's your end goal? That way we can figure out what kind of budgeting we can talk about, you know? And so for people that, like I had said, just want to have like a weekend thing, okay, so you probably want to do like a lift kit, some lighting, you know, whatever. We can work out with the people that I work with, like the sponsors and brands that I am a dealer for, to get like at least like dealer pricing or work out something like that. That's a little bit different. Whereas, okay, you want to take it to SEMA. All right. What kind of suspension are you wanting? Because if you're bringing me an F450 Platinum and you want an any level, bro, you better have some serious dough, because just that alone easily going to be 50 to 80 grand in suspension alone.
Damn, seriously?
Yes. Yes.
Damn.
Yes. That's just suspension. That's not
But it's
including
not the lift kit
everything
or
else.
that's not the tires, it's not the wheels, it's not the
No,
wrap.
no, no. You're looking out the door. It's close to 48 to 53 grand for an any level out the door.
That's insane.
Yes. That doesn't include, well, sometimes it can include powder if you have them powder it. It just
Yeah.
depends. So, and they have different any level lifts too, different sizes, different trucks are different pricing, and all that's different, you know? So, like I said, though, I'm more in the like the Mopar side, but we did something a little different this past year with the GMC, which that's IFS. And so that's a whole other ball game too. That
Yeah. I
really
wondered
limits.
about that.
Yes, it seriously limits your options that are out there, especially for large lifts. So there's
Yeah.
only like 3 companies that will make a lift for an IFS suspension that are over 13 inches high. So it's hard to find that, first off. And then second, you don't know if they're actually going to work with you or not. So my biggest thing that I look forward to in brands is their communication. If it takes me 14 days to get a call back or an email back, or I have to chase them down, clearly if they're going to do that to me, they're going to do that to others, and I'm not going to want to recommend them,
Yeah.
and they have to deal with that, and I don't want to do that to people. I want
Yeah.
to.
All the companies that you've sent me to have been pretty great.
Awesome.
Like,
That makes my
yeah.
heart happy. Good.
Yeah. So those
And
of you
vice
that don't
versa.
know, the reason that I started going to Synergy for some of my steering stuff is because of her, because
And
that's what
you
she
had me
uses.
in E&J.
Yep.
So that helped a huge with our front cover and valve cover. So thank you for that because they've been wonderful also. So
Yeah, well, and that's like what I love about like our working relationship with like social media and stuff is I've seen so many people gatekeep shit. And
yeah.
I'm just like, I'm not for that. If you need help with something, there are so many things in your expertise that I don't have that I talk to you about wraps and shit
Oh
like
yeah.
that. I don't have the background with that. I don't know. I don't trust my own research. So like I am more than I love to be able to the trading of information and like, you needed help with your timing cover just wouldn't reseal. And
Yeah.
that shit is that is such a fucking cunt to deal with. And the only reason I know like, hey, you need to go bill it is because guess what I've dealt with Tappet covers on the second gens. The
Yeah.
same bullshit. But like that's we've traded so many things. Like you helped me get that. I've told people you got me the decal for my green and black truck,
Oh yeah.
although my installation was not super phenomenal. Um, I think what we traded like an engine turning tool and a seal
Yeah.
installer. But like, but
Yeah.
that's just great. Like, why
I've
gatekeep?
used it
Why
so
not
much.
just work with people?
Yeah.
Like, if I ever have to do a camshaft in one of my trucks and I don't want to pull the engine out, guess whose videos I'm going to be looking at? Because you did it,
Dude, I've done it 6
So,
times. I don't want to do it no more. I'm so over it. Like I could do that in my sleep now.
but
I tell
that's
you,
like I don't like the gatekeeping that some people like to do. And some of these creators, I've tried to reach out to some creators for their opinions on some things, and it's just impossible to even get a hold of them. And this is coming from a page who is verified with a lot of followers.
yeah.
So I could only imagine if you were a smaller like
Right.
creator trying to get a hold of these people, it's insane. But like, so back to the sponsorship stuff. So
Oh
let's
yeah.
say I have a question kind of like veering off though. So the McNasty truck that you guys built,
Mhm.
how much of that truck was sponsorship and how much of that truck was because that was a customer's truck? How much of that was
Right, right.
sponsored or how much was that was paid?
So, full transparency, probably about 80% of that truck was sponsored.
Sponsored?
Yes.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously not the truck itself. Like the truck
Yeah.
itself right there is already over 100 grand because it's a brand new truck and GMC Denali's are not cheap by any means. So, I mean, you're already in a good chunk of change just buying that truck already kind of a thing.
Yeah.
So the other side of that was that the owner is my college best friend. So her and I had been talking about building her a truck for the last 3 years, and trying to find the right timing was what it was kind of coming down to. So when she had said that, "Hey, I'm gonna trade in my 2019, get a 2024," and I was like, "Okay, tell me right now, is your bank account ready for this? Because if that's the case, we need to do it this year, being that it's the new year for SEMA, and they are all looking for the brand new trucks to put products on." And she's like, yeah, hell yeah, let's do this. So that was basically how that all started. Was she bought the truck. She lives in Tennessee, so she shipped it here in Texas in May of 24, and we started the initial tear down of it because everything has to come off. So we did the wrap first because it's kind of impossible to wrap a truck that's lifted in the air 15 inches.
Yeah.
So we do the interior and the wrap first. That way it's not a struggle later once it's clear in the air. So I ripped the entire interior apart because we did custom headliner with 2,500 starlights and shooting stars and custom glitter fabric. That was about 46 hours in labor of just the headliner alone.
Damn.
So yeah, this is what I mean. That's what I mean. Like, labor costs for customization stuff can rack up a serious bill. So
For someone like you, though, that you don't have to pay yourself labor,
yeah,
it's better, right?
right. I mean, the that all that ends up getting charged to the customer, obviously, but
Yeah.
it is different if I say, like, I have my now husband work with me. Now you have 2 people on it. So
Yep.
that can get different with hours wise, because obviously if I was doing that by myself, it would have been a lot longer. So you kind of have to take into the factor, because if you did have an employee that you now have to pay for their labor time, that as a shop owner, you have to consider all that. So making quotes can be difficult so that you don't over or underestimate what the final
Yeah. Well, you
hours
would
are
rather
gonna be.
overestimate
Right.
and have the bill come back
Yes.
lower than
Yes.
under promise, or like, under. I've always been a
100%.
firm believer of under promise, over deliver.
Yes.
And that's what I did when I ran the heavy equipment shop for about 2 months, 3 months for Hanan. Is we were having customer problems with the previous boss, and granted, it's not really his fault because he came from the Denver area where everything is so close that you could shove 10 field calls into one day. But in
Oh,
Wyoming,
yeah.
it's,
Yeah.
everything is
Spread
at
out.
least an hour away, right? And so we were running into issues where he was over promising on when we were going to be there and stuff like that. And so I kind of switched gears and, like, you know what? I'm just going to try something. So what I tried was, okay, each field mechanic, which I have 2 of, I'm the only shop mechanic, unfortunately, right now. So I'm trying to run the shop and be the only shop mechanic.
Yeah.
But as far as the field work, what I'm going to do is I'm going to promise them the day after I think I actually can be there.
Yeah.
Unless they're a large operation that has to be an exact time to shut down, if they're,
Yeah.
which most of them aren't. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to tell them I'm going to be there, let's say Wednesday, knowing damn well that if everything goes right, I'll be there Tuesday. But I'm
Right.
going to tell them Wednesday. And then I'm going to schedule each field mechanic 1, maybe 2, if there's one in Cheyenne, field calls a day. That way they're not so backlogged with, like, because it's so common to go on a field call and they're like, oh, by the way, can you also check this out and
Yeah.
this out and this out and this out? And
Uh-huh.
God forbid they're also doing an electronic diagnostics, which could be 5-minute fuse or could be a 5-hour goddamn deep dive
Yeah.
or a 5-day deep dive. I mean, let's be honest. So
Mhm.
what ended up happening was they ended up being happier because most of the time we were early.
Yeah.
Even though technically we were on time, to them we were early because I told them we wouldn't be there till Wednesday.
Right.
So I think that also goes into the parts quoting thing too, is if you round up, okay, I'm going to quote them literally anything and everything they could possibly
Yes.
fucking need, and I'm going to
Yes.
overquote my labor. And then obviously I'm not going to milk that labor. And that's where your trust with your customer comes in. to where they know that like if you overquote them, you're not going to milk it into that and just keep that.
Right.
That makes sense to overquote the shit out of the price. And then when they get the bill back and it's $5,000 cheaper, they're like, fuck yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Especially
Absolutely.
with stuff like what you're doing, everything you fucking touch is different. Every lift kit's different. Every vehicle's different. So it's really hard to get an exact like, oh, it's going to take this long to install this when every single thing you do is different. Now, if all you fucking did was second gens, right, or something like that, you could probably have it down to a science on exactly how long it takes to do a lift kit. But you're doing not only just Dodges, but now you're doing other people's like you said, Fords or Chevys, and it's all different. For those of you that don't know what IFS stands for, that's independent front suspension, or some people might know it as independent link suspension. That is a whole nother fucking ball game, because imagine trying to put
living
a
hell
on your car.
Also known
Like,
as living hell.
I would never. You are braver than me. I would never. I would never in a million years touch a lift kit. The amount of fucking struggle bus I rode trying to do the fucking springs in my boyfriend's Challenger, which is all independent, right? The amount of fucking struggle with just that shit. I would not, no way in a million years I would trust it. I would touch a fucking lift kit on a truck with that. So like, more power to you with that. That's insane. But like, so let's say somebody is not they don't have super deep pockets. They also don't have the connections with the sponsors, or they don't have you doing it, right? Or me doing it.
Yeah.
How would they go about, like, maybe they don't want something SEMA, because like you said, that's a whole nother fucking ball game. They just want something that they can take to like UCC or their local fucking shows, or and something like that. What would they do to try to go about the sponsorship route? How would a normal average person do that? Because I know how we would do it.
Yeah.
So
it's hard to give advice in that sense, because like you said, we know how we would do it because we have the years of experience and the following to help back it up. So for something like that, it will be a little bit more challenging, I would say, but at the same time, you have to just come with the mentality of the worst they can say is no, and you're already in that same boat. So it's like you might as well see what they say. But the other side of that is that collaborations and sponsorships are transactional. What are you giving them that is the same, if not more value to whatever that you are requesting? So that is what you have to kind of sit back and think about in terms of, clearly, like a $10 sticker on the back of the window is not valuable to them in terms of a $3,000 part. You know what I mean?
yeah.
So you kind of have to think of that too, of what can I provide them marketing wise that is to value of them, whether that be an unboxing video along with an installation video. There's a lot of companies that need help with install videos because they don't have the in-house capabilities of doing that. So chances are, yes, chances are they will be like, yes, we will be more than happy to supply you with the part in return of you filming an installation video for us. Now, you can't just have it be like a blow Joe crap video, again, the monetary value needs to match. So you have to keep that in mind. But YouTube, I feel like, has been a huge new avenue that I've been going down this year, specifically because I see the value there, even with the tiny following I have on that platform. So I'm kind of trying to focus more on the YouTube side of things because of that value between the affiliate shopping and the connected stores now that you can do. So having those avenues where if you post their video of their product installing it, then they can now share it with their audience. But at the same time, it's almost like you're double dipping because you can also maybe make affiliate sales on that as well. So like, for instance, I did a video measuring crankcase pressure with the D&J valve cover and showed with test results in numerical test results the difference between their valve cover and a different aftermarket valve cover and why it was more superior. With that video alone, I've already sold 5 valve covers. So D&J is like freaking stoked about that. And then I'm really excited because I was looking for a video of measuring crankcase pressure and could not for the life of me find anyone anywhere.
Yep.
I'm sure it's on the web somewhere, but at that point in time, I could not find a video of it. So I'm like, I'm just going to make my own. So
some of the shit that you're doing may not be. And that's what I've learned too, is like, if you want to Google, and that's my beauty, my love for YouTube is I want to be that video that when somebody's having a problem with their truck and they're trying to Google it, they fucking, and like, no fucking way, dude.
Yeah.
And that's the same problem. It like, there's a million videos out there of installing timing gear covers on a Cummins.
Yeah.
But what there's not a million videos of is I had an issue with my truck when I first started it up and started running it, is I was getting the most nasty motherfucking gray sludge coming out of the breather pipes. Like, I'm like, fuck, dude, like, this is not good. And I started tearing into it. And I'm like, well, the first thing I tried was bigger breather hoses because maybe it's just backing up the back pressure, right? And that didn't fix it. So I'm like, what the fuck? Like, this definitely looks like coolant, but it's not enough coolant to be mixing in the oil, which was weird. I'm like, this is such a fucking weird problem. It's literally just coming out of my breather. And when I pull my valve cover off, it's coating the top of my valve cover with this gray sludge, but there's no mixture of coolant in my oil. I'm like, what the fuck? And so actually I figured it out when I was doing my injectors because the trash injectors I bought stock were trash, and Industrial Injection helped me out with some new ones. And I went to go put them in and I pulled the rocker housing off and I'm like, oh fuck. Every single one of those freeze plugs on the top of the head. So stock, they're press-in freeze plugs, which I did not realize that until I tried to look up the torque spec for them. These ones were Allen plugs, and I thought, I didn't even know they weren't stock. So, but there's like a little tiny puddle of coolant on each one of them. And I'm like, so what was happening is the coolant was seeping through those just enough to evaporate and go to the top of the valve cover and come out the breather. So what I ended up doing is apparently that's aftermarket. Some machine shops do that. They thread those freeze plugs. Well, if you don't thread them the exact perfect depth, they will leak. And I saw that there was sealant, like the liquid thread sealant on them. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try Teflon tape. I actually called my dad and I'm like, Dad, I don't really know what to do with this because it's obvious they tried to seal it. They are tight. I did check that. They made sure they were tightened. So what do I do? And he's like, Teflon tape the shit out of it. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to try that. So I did, dude. I went through like 3 rolls of Teflon tape and I Tefloned the shit out of them and it fixed it. So I'm like, you know what? I recorded that whole video and that video has done really well on YouTube because I looked, like I tried to dive into this fucking hard and I could not find anything besides the obvious of like, oh, your oil cooler is out and your whole engine looks like a milkshake, right?
Right.
I could not find anything for gray sludge out of my breather, but no coolant in my oil. And I'm like, well, maybe this is going to save somebody else a lot of fucking time.
Oh, yeah.
Because maybe they had a machine shop do these plugs and they didn't realize it and they're having this issue. So that's what I love about YouTube. And I love sharing little tips and tricks and stuff like that. Like I just did a video for Boost Auto for their like power fold mirrors.
Oh,
and I was sitting there trying to get the fucking, I don't know if you have a 3rd gen, but there's 3 bolts to mount the headlights. 2 of them are nice and pretty right by the radiator. One of them is like fucked underneath the goddamn headlight going this like towards the back of the vehicle. So you can't get at it from the fender well. And so I got it out, but to put it back in, I'm like, I'm going to use this like as a filming opportunity for a tip. Like, so I learned this from an old mechanic is that if you have a bolt that you're trying to get in somewhere, that you can't reach with your hands, so you got to use an extension or a socket. You can cut out a piece of paper or a piece of plastic and shove it into the socket with the bolt head, and it'll stick it in there. And those are the tips, and that makes it stay in there and makes those things easier. And so that's what I've been trying to do with like really diving into like all the little tricks and tips, like things that I learned from the industry that I don't even think about anymore. But maybe there's somebody out there that
no way.
Right, like that dude. That dude duetted one of my videos before. I don't remember which one it was, but the dash light fucking so the third gens, they obviously have the 3 key cycle to show the codes. But there's like, if you do like the key on and press the trip thing at the same time or something like that, and it's been a while, and then release it, or not the 3rd gen, the 2nd gen, sorry, and release it, it will do a full gauge sweep of every single gauge, and it'll test the entire cluster, and then it will show you codes specifically for the cluster. And I'm like,
interesting.
I didn't know that. I've owned these trucks for
I
mean, I've had that maroon truck for like 10 years. I had no idea. So I made a video of that, and he duetted it, and he's like, what? No way. And then he goes in there and does it. And I'm like, yes, someone's acknowledging.
Awesome.
But
that's awesome.
And I actually found that out by another YouTube creator. So, yeah, that's a little off top, like kind of a rant there. My ADD brain kind of like got off. But so I have another question for you about Diesel, about sponsors. So this year is the first year that I've really even been able to, or the last 2 years that I've really even been able to dive into the sponsor world. And like industrial injection has been super fucking helpful. I mean, they sent me a turbo, they sent me injectors, fuel delivery tubes, they sent me a bunch of pulleys for the front of my truck. And then Synergy's also been super helpful. I mean, I'm still working. I actually have another box of their shit in the back of my truck that I need to do. How do I go, like someone like me, how do I break from I can get some sponsors for some very specific things, but it's not enough. It's not enough to be able to afford to build my truck the way I want it. So how do I bridge that gap between I'm doing pretty well right now and I love and appreciate all my sponsors, but how do I bridge that gap between where I'm at now, this kind of weird middle ground, but then being able to actually have a truck that is 80% sponsored? Like, how do I bridge that gap?
To be honest, I'm going to tell you that not to use shows and all that as an in, but in a way that is actually an in. So like specifically with brands, to kind of like give credibility in a way, it's like, hey, this vehicle is going to SEMA, and that's kind of like where they're like, oh, okay, this person is like this kind of level, this serious, versus just a creator in a way. So having something that's at that caliber, that's already like the bells and whistles are going off of, okay, cool, yeah, that we have a marketing budget for like SEMA builds and stuff. So they always are like way more on board for, I feel like, that when you mention that and that it's going to that, and you have a rendering and you have a build proposal and you have your media plan and you have this whole proposal deck already planned out, ready, and sent to them. And that's what really shows them how serious you are of, okay, so they aren't just like blowing hot air and wanting free stuff. You know what I mean? So I feel like that's kind of the one big thing that they want to see, that you put in a lot of effort before you even reached out, kind of a thing.
Yeah, so that makes sense.
The show season and SEMA aside, what I would suggest for something that's your personal build, especially, that obviously you're going to put on all your social media, you have the whole build series going on with it. Like, personally, I think that that's actually more beneficial to a company, more so than, say, a build for a show. And this is why, is because people are invested in it. Similar to like, you already knew what my second gen was named, CC.
Yep.
And I haven't done nothing with that truck in over like 8 years. And that right there is because there's a story with it. And building credibility with your audience is huge. So they know your vehicles. And when they've seen you have all these struggles with these vehicles, and they follow that. So that is a key component that you need to now relay to potential other sponsors within a build proposal. Now, the things that I add to the proposals are, you need to have, what is your end goal? What is like your dream truck going to look like, and have a digital rendering of it. And the reason being is so that they can visually see what it is that you're trying to achieve. Because it's kind of hard to see that now, especially when we have shitty second gens. They don't see that, but it's like, okay, you have your build now. They want to visually see what it is that you're trying to achieve in the end game. That way they can get
stuff
bored.
that's not visual. Like, so I like the aesthetic stuff, and that's a big deal for me too. But the main focus of my stuff is I want to put my foot to the fucking floor and smile every, right? Like, I want fucking performance, but my problem is I don't really have so if I'm going for the performance side of it, obviously I'm going to have to talk to you a little bit about how to get a visual rendering, because I would love that. Actually, that is a fucking great idea. But how do I do I just tell them like, hey, I want to make 700 horsepower with this truck?
Yes. You need to
be like, that's what I want.
Yes.
So I hate truck shows, but I think
you don't have to go to truck shows.
Well, but that could be beneficial though, because like you're saying, is I've always hated truck shows. I hate going. And if I like, even with industrial injection, I love industrial injection. They're such a great company. But when I was doing a video at UCC with their fan dyno truck, I mean, this thing is fucking awesome. It's like badass as shit. I felt like it was wrong that I was like doing stuff with somebody else's vehicle. So like, do I need to just like get over that and like go to these places and collaborate and make all these connections and things like that? If that's something that is super beneficial, like I don't want to just go to a truck show. Like I would go to UCC regardless of if anyone paid me, because it's racist. Right. But I'm not going to go to a truck show if there's no benefit to it. So, but if what you're saying is like, because I feel like with everything you just said, what I'm missing is how I word my proposals is definitely part of it, because I'm super like mechanicky about it. I'm like, hey, I want a turbo. Can you say like I got all these social media followers I can help. What I really need, I need a rendering. I need more specifics on what I want the end build to look like. And then I need to be able to physically take this truck to certain events. And even whether I win or lose, it's still eyes on their stuff.
Exactly.
So that's like, I've wondered about that, because I fucking hate truck shows, but there might be maybe I'm selling myself short on that whole thing.
You're
because
in
obviously like my truck is not show quality, but it could be.
Wait, you said you lived in Wyoming? Or where do you live at?
I live in Indiana now. I used to live in Wyoming, but I live in Indiana now.
Dude, there's so many stuff up there by you. There's a lot of shows up by you. I know you don't want to do the whole truck show scene. I understand that, especially when it comes to the performance side of things. There are some benefits to it, and then there's other ones that are just like, this is the same exact people that I've seen for the last 2 years, and the copy paste trucks. So I get that, because I've been there, done that too. The first like year that you like travel and do all the shows, it's so much fun, because you get to meet a lot of people, you get to network with a lot of people, and then you kind of fall into the whole, it's like the same people, different colors of trucks, and they're all like the same cookie cutter stuff when it comes to that. So I definitely understand that. There's lots of, you can't just do truck shows, because there's so many other events that are out there. I've had a lot more fun, honestly, going to local shows, because you actually get to meet the people that are your client base as well. So like people that will actually use your services and render your services are your local community more or less than people who are in Florida. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So doing the local stuff, I feel like is more beneficial to my own shop and my own business per se, but that's not going to be beneficial necessarily all the time to say nationwide companies. So for instance, whenever we had done the Jeeps and we go to Jeep shows, the number one question I was asked on that Jeep was, where are your bumpers and fenders from? Well, that is a ton of business for Hammerhead Armor because they were the ones that made them. But the thing with that is they don't go to shows. So I was kind of their spokesperson in that way and in that sense to advertise for them, I guess, is what I'm trying to say. So with that in mind, you have to kind of keep that in mind where they might be based out of Mississippi, but they might just now have an influx from Florida shipments because I was just at a show in Florida and showcased all of their products, and now everyone's never heard of them. And now they're all like, dude, these are freaking badass. And I'm like, I know. So it's stuff like that where it can be hit or miss. With the performance side of things, especially in the diesel world, UCC is like the holy grail of events for.
Yeah. There's a Rocky Diesel on the mountain too in Bannermere Speedway in Colorado. That's so fucking far. And that's the other problem I have with truck shows is like I am with because I have horses and and stuff like that, like and a dog, like traveling is super difficult. So I would have to like stick to, for the most part, local shit. And not on top of that, I'm also, I mean, Hitachi flies me out to places, Diesel Laptops flies me to shows. So like I have to be limited with my traveling a little bit, but I really want to like, and that's the other thing is if I do start a custom shop, obviously I want the majority of my shit to be, I want to really get into the performance engine side of it and building the engine side of it. But I don't want to, I am totally fine with, in my opinion, like for the most part, obviously there's some lift kits that are pretty in depth, but for the most part, a 5-inch lift with some 35s is like, I mean, that's fucking cake work for the most part, right? That's cake shit. So
you can do that in a day.
Why deny that to people? Like, hey, by the way, like, I know I'm doing all this badass shit to your engine and like your drivetrain. Do you want to slap a 5-inch lift on this with some 35s and call it good? Like,
and
just to kind of polish that shit. So I didn't even think about until you mentioned, like, because I don't work as an affiliate just because I don't know. I've never had any luck with it. And I always feel bad when I'm not able to sell shit. But if I'm running my own shop,
you need to be a dealer.
That's different because you can sell shit. You can be like, all right, I buy everything from Synergy Manufacturing, for an example. I can get you all the steering stuff. I can get you up to a 6-inch lift kit. And get, this is actually what I run on my personal vehicle. And then obviously, like, let's use it now. Synergy's already been more than gracious with my stuff, and I'm super appreciative of them. But that's even more of a benefit to them and more of an incentive to a company like them to sell me stuff for mine. If I can be like, hey, every single truck I get in here, if it's a 6-inch lift or under, because that's basically all they do, I will use your shit. And I'll get it. And I believe they can powder coat too. So I can like get all this. They asked me what color I wanted my suspension stuff at one point. So I don't know if there's like, if they powder coat like a wide array or it's just like, hey, do you want gray or black? It's your option. But that's like, it's so like, it blows my mind. One of the girls that I met when I first started doing my social media stuff, her name is Winter. Renee.
Winter Renee?
Yes. And she was one of my very first mutuals on social media. I love this girl. She is, I kind of got her into the True Fans thing and things like that. And she told me she's met you too.
Yeah, she does some badass welding stuff.
Yeah. And I got for the first time ever at UCC, I got to meet her in person and I got to see her truck. And I'm looking at this truck and I mean, this thing is motherfucking polished from the custom like gray that's definitely not the stock gray paint on it, right? To the suspensions all powder coated with this cool red and black theme. The engine compartment is just gorgeous. It's got all this aftermarket shit and I'm like, damn, I I started before you with this shit and you've already surpassed me so far, which in a sense makes me prideful. Like I'm proud of her for how
Yeah.
far she has exceeded past me. And I'm so proud of her with that, but I'm at the same time I'm like, damn, how the fuck do I do that? How do I fucking
Yeah.
do that to my shit? Because I mean, she's just on a whole nother level and I'm so proud of her. And I love using her as an example to some girls. I'm like, dude, you can literally start with she literally, her first truck that she had was a gasser second gen. And that's what she started her social media presence with. And
Yeah.
now look at her. She's got like 3 trucks and her third gen is the most beautiful, one of the most beautiful builds I've ever seen. And I love using that as an example of like, you don't have to start out with a bunch of money and this big, ridiculous
Right.
fucking truck build to build that up. And
Right.
I love that. But
It takes time though too. You have
yeah,
to consider that as a
this was 6
part.
or 7 years ago that
Right.
she
Yeah.
started. And that's,
Yeah. Yeah.
you know,
I met
but
her, I want to say like 3, 4 years ago. I met her and Brooke Champ at the same time. And of course we all vibed because we're all Dodge girls. So,
yep.
and it was at UCC. So it is really cool to see where people start to where they are now. And you have to give yourself some grace too, because you have to also think back on where you were at that time to where you are now. Because I
I
think it
also
is
started with a
easy.
piece of shit gasser second
See?
gen.
It's easy to see others and how far they've come and forget about how far you've come as well. So that's a lot of it too, where you have to sit back and kind of reminisce a little and be like, "Oh, you know what? I have done the damn thing and I'm still going. It's okay." You know? Cuz it is easy. It's super easy to get lost in the sauce and want to just have the biggest baddest things around and fastest at this point because everyone and their brothers forking out like damn near 2,000 horsepower out of these diesels. It's insane.
Dude,
So
industrial injections fan dyno truck. It was like 2180.
they're
So
insane.
basically 2200 horsepower. And I'm like,
Yeah.
first of all, I really wish their dynos tested torque. I would love to know that torque number. But it's like, damn, that's the fan dyno. Like, I don't stand a chance in motherfucking hell.
Yeah.
Like,
I
I
can
also
feel
don't
that.
have the money to be like, oh, it blew up. I'll just put another engine in it next week.
Well, yeah, there's that too. Because yeah, they might make those numbers, but it's not a longevity because it will grenade eventually and send a piston up into the stands. Because I've seen
Yep.
that too.
We
So
got to witness that at the UCC. We got to witness a dyno truck that blew pistons into the fucking fan. So that was
the
cool. But
atmosphere. Oh yeah.
I love
But
seeing broke shit. I just don't prefer it to not be on my stuff.
right. Yeah.
But I really wanted to dive into the customization world with you because like in a lot of aspects, what you're doing right now is what I'm trying to get to the point where I can do. And the one last question I'm going to bother you with today on this is your shop. So you built your shop brand new, right?
No, so my
Okay.
shop, okay, this is how that hell happened. So I was working at Rush and I was currently renting a house with a 2-stall garage. And I was looking for a house. I found this house that had a shop already. And I bought the house because it had the shop. And then just kind of like fix up
Same,
the house.
same.
Yes. So that's how that ended up working was I saw the shop. I saw it had a lot of potential. Um, it was a woodworker's shop at one point before the previous owner. It had been an automotive shop where like they had a lift in there previously because you can see the cut studs where the old lift was. But it was just it was just empty, but it was big enough where I had tall enough ceilings for a lift. And that
Yeah.
was my
That's a
big
big
thing.
thing.
So
Yep.
having being able to have that, and I needed especially an XL lift because we're picking up the dualies, and I needed a little extra height because everything we do is freaking massive. So I needed something that would be able to have the XL lift, and we could only put it in one spot where the pitch of the roof just clears like 6 inches on either side to fit it in there. But that's how I ended up with the shop. Like I didn't build it. Um, we just I bought the house and then the shop was already there, so that just made life a lot easier. Um, we do plan on building a barnuminium sometime down the future. I don't know, 5, 7, 10 years. I don't know. I'm still trying to build my truck, and I've been doing that for like since 8 years ago. So we'll see how that
I get
goes.
it. Yep.
I'm sure the barnuminium will be built before that second gen ever is at this point. That's how I feel about that. But
I was
down
just
the
curious
road,
with the shop thing because I'm like, I don't know what to do with my shit because I can't stay where I'm at right now. I have to relocate.
hmm,
And it has been so fucking hard because obviously I need acreage for my horses.
yeah,
It has been such a challenge because my whole thought was like, oh, well, I'll either buy a nice house and a big enough property and then I can build a shop on it, or I can find a property that already has a shop on it, like I did. Well, it
yeah,
is so fucking hard for the
hard,
exact thing you just said to find, like, if they do have shops, they're not tall enough for shit.
yeah,
Like, my truck won't even drive into it the way it is, let alone trying to do anything else. Or
yeah,
if it is tall enough, it's like dilapidated as fuck. And
yeah,
the housing market here is ridiculous. Like technically, not to really get into my personal finances, but I'm approved for 5% down. I'm approved for 800,000. And believe it or not, that is not enough money in the
yeah,
area where I'm trying to move to
yeah,
have a shop and the acreage in the house. It's barely enough to have acreage in a house.
yeah.
So, like, what I was thinking about is what route would I go down? Because I'd probably have to get a business loan. And this, I don't know if you've pulled business loans before. So I don't know if you know how that
The
works.
interest rates
But like,
are
I'm going to have
ridiculous.
to buy another shop.
Yeah,
Like, whether I build one or I go and find an old shop that somebody has for sale or something like that. And then like, how the fuck do I cover the expenses of the lift? Like you said, like right now I have this little 2-post lift and it's rated for 9,000 pounds,
yeah,
but the legs aren't long enough to like, I have Red Neckereed used it to
yeah,
pick up the front half of my truck just so I can put the big jack stands underneath it, but and my floor jack won't fucking lift that high. But
yeah,
like, how do you like go about trying to, because as an ex-mechanic myself, I got more tools than I know what to do with, but that's
yeah,
still not enough. I still need more shit to be doing
yeah,
what I'm trying to do. And
yeah,
things like a lift. I mean, just this gantry crane behind me was, it was like $1,000 for the frame. And
yeah. And then you have the crane.
the
Yeah,
motor was 2 grand or 1,500.
yeah,
And that's just for that gantry crane that, believe it or not, is I have to like stretch it wider to get it
yeah,
around the tires on my green and black truck to even put the engine in. Obviously, still better than a fucking cherry picker because good
yeah,
luck finding a cherry picker that's tall enough to get the engine into a truck with 6 inches of lift and 37-inch tires. It's still
yeah.
better, but that actually is barely tall enough, lifts it barely tall enough to get the engine to clear into that truck. So it's like, it's insane. Like, how, I guess I was going to ask you, how do you go about setting everything up to where, okay, when I start taking clients, I'm ready. I have the confidence. I have everything I need, kind of thing. But if you
You'll
bought it
never
with your
have,
house, that
yeah, you'll never have everything you need, unfortunately. That's just the way it goes. There's a lot of things where I'll be halfway into a job and be like, shit, I need a specialty tool. Or crap, it doesn't fit. That, dude, that especially with modified lifted trucks, we use our 2-post lift just to pull the front end of the engine up enough to do a freaking oil pan gasket on it. Because again,
yep,
none of my engine hoists are gonna fit, and we're running 37s on that on a 8-inch lift. So
yeah,
nothing fits, So we had to use the 2-post lift just to hoist the front of the engine up enough to clear. So you kind of have to get creative, unfortunately. But I feel like the confidence thing is, I feel like I had a lot more risk taking when I was at the dealership because I didn't have all of the liability and overhead on myself. Whereas
Yeah.
now you're by yourself and that's all 100% on you. So there is a certain sense of, okay, what happens if something goes south? Like you put together an engine and it grenades a customer's vehicle. Like stuff like that, it's part of it and it's terrifying. And
So do you
it
have
was,
insurance for that?
dude, it's hard to find insurance for that, which is exactly why I don't specifically do repair work. I do customization work. Being aftermarket, they assume all risks and they all sign waivers for all that stuff.
So you have
Repair
like
work,
a waiver set up for that then?
yeah.
Okay.
Yes. So anybody that I like, especially when it comes to like steering stuff, and if we're putting these massive tires on stock braking systems, like they assume all liability because of it being an aftermarket ordeal. So that's why I had said when I did that AC stuff, I don't usually typically do that. And I was just kind of helping him because he was already a customer that I had done prior work for vinyl wrapping. So
Yeah.
it was kind of one of those I'll get you out of a jam kind of things, but still sign the waiver. Hey, if anything was to happen, sorry about you, basically, because that's the only way to
Yeah.
cover myself.
Well,
Um,
that's what I've been worried with the engine side of it is if I start building engines, I mean, the waiver thing's a good idea because obviously you can be like, well, I can set you up with a turbo and some injectors and stuff like that. But if you're not willing to go in and do the clutch and the transmission, especially if you're a Dodge and you have an automatic, right?
yeah,
Like, or if you do a bunch of fucking burnouts, like I can't
yeah,
warranty, things like that. Obviously, I can warranty like if I put a gasket on something and it leaks,
right,
like yes, obviously. But like, so how do you set that up to where like what's warranty and what's not? And with the engines, I'm super terrified because like I'm terrified of like, so we've got friends here in Indiana and they have a son that has a 2015 Cummins. And this thing, somebody spent a lot of time and money on this. Somebody did at some point because I mean the kid's ruining it with the fucking stupid ass wheels and tires he's got and the burnouts he does. But this
yeah,
thing was completely fully deleted with no check engine lights or anything. Complete straight pipe kit. It had a custom built transmission for it and a
okay,
tuner. And like that's not like extreme, like doesn't have an aftermarket turbo and injectors and shit like that, but it's enough to where like the kid smoked his transmission. Well, he didn't smoke it. They said it stopped moving, and I tried to help him with like the little diagnostics, like does your oil smell like you roasted it, like things
hmm,
like that, which it didn't. But they were trying to tell me they're like, well, we want to bring it to you. What we're gonna do is we're gonna take it to the guy that did the transmission. He thinks it's just the valve body. If it's not the valve body, would you be able to do the transmission? And I'm like, well, obviously, yeah, I can do a transmission for sure. I've done transmissions on these trucks before, automatics. And then I'm sitting there, I'm like, I don't have a fucking transmission jack, which
oh,
is
bro,
something that you need for that.
you
And I'm like, well,
kind
I'm
of
gonna have
need
to fork
that.
over the money for that. And like, if you go down to like, because I was being generous with my waiver rate just because I've never done it and they were friends. And I think I quoted them 50 or $60 an hour, which is super fucking cheap.
Dude,
Like, just because I've never done the job before
yeah,
and the kid's fucking 17. So I'm like, all right, I'll help you out a little bit here. But I still have to like the labor rate and what I overquoted them on the time. And that's still going to barely even cover the transmission jack I got to fucking buy. And then what do I do? Like, obviously, these people would probably be the people to understand, like, hey, if I bolt a transmission in there for you, and you launch a drive line or some other dumb shit that's not
hmm,
related to the transmission. But what do I do with customers that like is in the automotive industry? It's so common where people are like, oh, you did an oil change and my transmission's now blown up. It's your fault.
yeah,
Like,
yeah,
how the fuck? And I was curious with that, with taking customer machines on how you do machines, trucks on how you do
hmm,
that. And the liability form, because it's aftermarket, makes a lot of sense. Because in that sense, you don't actually have to have insurance
no,
for that shit because like you said, it actually makes sense now that you said it. Well, if it's aftermarket, you're going to assume the risks because Like I can make you a quote for what in theory is going to work. Like specifically, if I'm going to build you a 700 horsepower engine, I can contact industrial injection. I can get you the block you need. I can get you the rods, the pistons, all the shit you need for it engine wise. And let's say they do approve the clutch and the transmission and the upgraded drive lines and shit. Well, that doesn't mean that's going to be perfect and it's not going to blow apart the first time you try and do a burnout in it. Because maybe I underestimated how much horsepower we built and I smoked the fucking clutch or the transmission or something like that. Like I've always been curious on how I would do that because that's kind of, it's a lot of guesswork. It's a guesstimation on, I mean, my maroon or my green and black truck is a prime example. All I did was a turbo and a stage 1 camshaft. So not anything crazy, right? 12 valve rods, which have no performance gain whatsoever. They're just stronger. And then shaved pistons, which have a very slight horsepower. So, and a tuner. So there's really not that much on that engine that's like a build, right? Like a crazy horsepower. And if I stomp on that thing too hard, with my tuner tuned up, I can smell my clutch burning. You know, this maroon truck was the same way. When I built that, I put 75 horsepower injectors in it, a stage 3 Colt camshaft, no aftermarket tuner, the exhaust or no aftermarket turbo. I had an edge tuner on it. Exhaust was port and polished, 110-pound valve springs. Still nothing that was super crazy build, right? I built that poor as shit. Like it took me a year to buy all the parts for that fucking thing. And I bought a 350 horsepower clutch in it thinking there's no way it's going to make more than that. There's no way. And sure, I tried to race one of my fucking work buddies a few years ago in that thing at a stoplight and I smoked the fuck out of my clutch. So like for my personal stuff, it's like whatever. But for somebody else's shit, the last thing we want is to build a truck for them and then they completely annihilate their clutch within the first week because obviously no one builds a high horsepower truck and doesn't go beat on it. So I was curious on how you managed that and how you did that.
I have not ran into that, thankfully, not yet anyways. Solely because of everything I do primarily is cosmetic. I mean, yeah, we have the Hellcats, but they were our own. So if we do something stupid in them,
suspension isn't completely cosmetic though.
No, I mean with the suspension, it's a lot of. If you're expecting an 8-inch lift kit to ride stock, you're freaking retarded just from that alone. You know what I mean? So it's like, my dude, obviously it's not going to ride the same. Like, come on.
Yeah, if you put 8 or 9 inches of lift on something with 38, 39, 40-inch tires, some fucking ridiculous. Like, there's companies like Synergy that make beefed up shit. But honestly, if you wanted that to ride exactly and steer, especially with Dodges, like steer perfectly, what you really have to do is literally buy metal and build all this shit. And that is like, I took a chassis fab class for like, technically learned how to like build suspension kits and put the ends on them and all that shit. And I technically learned how to do all that. But like, still, even if you went to that level, you still couldn't expect it to steer and drive the same.
No, it's not.
It's never
no matter
going
how
to
many, like if you're expecting this thing to perform like a trophy truck, like, dude, they have hundreds of thousands of dollars in their suspension alone. So,
well, if you wanted to perform like a trophy
truck, your rough country 4-inch lift kit is gonna ride nice. Like,
I love how you found the cheapest lift kit company possible and use that as an example. Zone Off Road is another one. But well, that's what I've told people too. With like my boyfriend, he's driven my green and black truck quite a few times, and like it was super squirrely, which I did fix because. And Synergy tells you to do this to check the centering of the axle. And I fucking didn't because I didn't think it was that important. Guess what? That made the giant fucking difference. But like, it's still not fucking perfect. It has 37-inch tires on it. And he told me, he's like, well, this thing does not like to stay in its lane, which has been fixed recently, but it's still never going to drive perfect. And I told him that. I'm like, if I wanted this thing to ride like fucking butter, I would have to buy trophy truck suspension, like basically buy the trophy truck suspension. And I'm not spending 120 grand on suspension on a truck I got for free from my dad. Okay. I'm not doing that. Like, you'd have no idea the ridiculous. And then he's like, well, you should put airbags on it so you can like lower it and then raise it. And I'm like, you also have no idea how expensive that is. And airbags don't actually ride that good. Have you ever ridden in a semi?
Yeah.
Okay. Semis are all airbag suspension shit, and they ride like trash.
Well, they
So,
see
like,
the airbag kit and they think, oh, the airbag kit's not much. Well, did you include all the management for it? Because the
yeah,
management is where it's the thousands of dollars that you're now putting in. You're running all these airlines. You have the tanks. You have the management. You have the bags. All this stuff. People just think bags. Oh, yeah, they're just bags. Okay, well, how the hell are you going to fill them?
yep,
My dude, how are you going to run it? Like, they don't think all the way through to the end. It's just like,
yep.
I can't let
Like,
you up there.
I'm like more than like willing to tell people, like, oh, like with my dually right here, it's got bags in the back. But the only purpose for, first of all, it's not rolling solely bags, which is a whole nother fucking thing.
Yeah.
The only purpose of those bags is to adjust the ride height when you have a trailer in it. And honestly, I've never touched it ever. They've been aired up since I bought it, which is super nice because I can hook a trailer with 20,000 pounds on it, 25,000 pounds, and it rides like super fucking perfectly straight. But that's a whole nother thing. And that's the difference that people don't understand between a utility purpose. There's a big difference between things that are a utility purpose like that. Like, honestly, you're never going to unair those. And even if you did want to air them up, just go to the gas station or you use an air pump and you can air them up. But if you're trying to get something that you can air up and down yourself and do all these fancy things, like that's not designed to ride great. The only purpose of those is to level it out with a load on it. When you start getting into the stuff where it's like about rideability and this, like even the like shock springs that you can get nowadays with the little valves that adjust the softness of those shocks and the springs, like that shit is fucking ridiculously insane. Is it fun as fuck and cool? Yeah, absolutely. But is it something that like, I don't think people quite wrap their head around what all that takes to get in there. And if you're raising and lowering your vehicle like that, you are changing your steering geometry. So you have to pick, okay, where is it going to be riding down the highway? And you have to keep it at that ride height. It's cool to go to the gas station and lower your ride to get out and get in. But if you leave it lowered like that, then you're going to just like your steering geometry isn't going to be right at that point.
I've seen so many guys rip off fenders because they left it down and then turned and ripped the fender off. And so it's like, yeah, it's all cool, it's all great, but one little stupid mistake like that can cost so much in repairs for stupid things like that. And it's just like, all for what? Like
Exactly.
the up and down coolness.
Well, and that's why I like to talk to you about this stuff because you're on both sides of it. Not only do you build and
Don't get me wrong,
have
I did. You what?
Sorry, like you froze, so I thought you stopped talking for a second, and I didn't realize it because you froze.
I know, because you froze on my side. I was like, what? What'd you say?
What I like about talking to you about these things is you dip into both sides of that because not only do you have and or build ridiculously tall, cool looking shit, but what people don't understand about a lot of your builds is you tow shit with those.
Yeah.
So a lot of your trucks are like, they have to be able to drive down the highway for thousands of miles towing a trailer, and they have to ride, like they have to be able to tow a trailer. They have to be able to function and be reliable. And what I've tried to explain to people so many times is there's a balancing act where when it comes to looks and performance and reliability and usability. Like I heard someone on TikTok say this and it's so true. It's like 1,000 horsepower car or truck sounds really cool until you try and drive it every day. And it's fun for the first few days you're driving it and romping on it, but is it fun anymore when you're trying to drive a fucking 1,000 horsepower truck with a full ceramic clutch to work every day. Like, no, that's no longer fucking fun. And can you use that to really tow that great? Because I don't know if you've ever driven anything with a full ceramic. Well, you have semis.
They're
So
freaking
imagine that in a
heavy.
fucking pickup truck.
Yeah.
I test drove a truck before I bought this maroon one that had a full ceramic clutch in it. And I almost rear-ended like 2 people. Like, this sucks. I'm never putting a full ceramic clutch in a fucking pickup truck ever again. Like, never gonna do it. Like, but
They're
so
just
people
so
don't understand that
heavy.
they think they can just build these giant trucks with a bunch of horsepower. Or I think people go to these truck shows and they see all these show trucks and they're like, they actually think these people drive them. You realize that they're loaded onto a trailer, taken to a show, loaded back on the trailer, and then leave. And that's basically their life. And not to
Most
shit on trailer queens, but I mean, race cars are the same way.
yeah.
Anything that is an actual performance truck or performance car is not going to be highway drivable. Like, if you're competing in races, like drag cars, for instance, like the top fuel dragsters, it takes like an entire baseball field to turn those things around because they're made for going straight. So everything that is competitive in that sense, like, pretty much is loaded onto a trailer and is trailered everywhere. So you cannot, like, I've told people that is you got to pick what's most important to you. And unfortunately, like, if you do want a high horsepower or something that's ridiculous, you also now need to have something to tow it with because you're not going to be driving that down the highway.
That's the exact scenario that my friend with the McNasty truck is now in, because she's like, okay, I have this 15-inch lift kit truck on 44-inch boggers, and I'm supposed to go to all these shows, and she doesn't have anything to tow it with. So now she's got to now budget to have this truck transported to all of the required shows throughout the year. And I think that's a huge cost that a lot of people don't think of at that time, because if you're taking your truck that you originally towed with and then now making it something where it's like not really towable, I guess, or what you would want to tow with, or just drive. Yeah. So then they're like, well, crap, now what? And these trucks, they get heavy. You add,
Yep.
you're adding so much weight on them. It's insane, between the wheels, tires, aftermarket bumpers, suspension. Dude, solid suspension like that, and those kits are retarded heavy. Like, it's ridiculous how much weight is on them things.
Well,
So
and boggers alone, like you mentioned, boggers.
yeah.
What people don't understand with boggers, and they fuck up, is most boggers are bias ply tires. They're soft. They're made for off-roading. So not only, like with diesels specifically, and exactly what you were saying with the weight, those aren't made to be aired up enough to be able to, like, you're going to have a lot of this weird, like, lean, soft shit with boggers. Not only that, but you're going to have the tire wear is going to be so fucking fast on those because they're bias ply. They're not made to be on the road.
On
They're
pavement.
made to be
Exactly.
rock crawling, aired down to like 20 psi is what they're made for.
Dude,
so
35, because that's the only way that you can have the amount of width you need for like your space to actually have enough to drive on. Otherwise, they're just really tall and skinny.
Yep. Well, I'm going to sign us off here because I have another episode that I'm filming for someone else as a guest here in like 15 minutes. But I really appreciate you coming on, and thank you for taking the time out of your day to not only just do this podcast, but this is the second episode you've done with me. So, and I appreciate all your insight. I like having you on here because you're honest about shit and you're real with shit. Like, I want to give people real information, honest information about these things. So I appreciate you being on here. And for those of you that my camera actually died like a while ago, but that's okay. I have the Zoom. For everybody that's in here, that I'm sure most of you already know who she is, but she is Cummins Cowgirl on every single platform. When I end this, I'm going to, when I post this, I'm going to tag your YouTube channel in there. And if there's a video that you want me to tag on the end screen, just let me know. So
Okay. I'll probably tag that crankcase pressure one since I had talked about it.
yeah, I can do that for sure. Do you have like a playlist set up for just repair videos on your
I
channel?
think I do. I think it's under how-to videos.
Okay, I'll also, I can share that video, and then I can also share the playlist of
Okay.
all of your repairs. So we'll do that. But thank you for coming on and spending damn near 2 hours with me. I appreciate it.